As I have said several times in my last few homesteading videos, I am trying something new and trying to make this year all about trying for me. So we are dipping our toes into canning. So I briefly showed at the beginning of this video a book I was following. I can't tell you how many times I stopped what I was doing here and went back and reread and reread and reread everything in that book and tried my absolute best to can some tomatoes. I didn't have nearly as many as I thought I was going to in terms of cans of tomatoes. Everything I have here turned into just one can of canned goods. And I had extra tomatoes, but I was reading in that book that I mentioned that Roma tomatoes are one of the better tomatoes to use. And so I had Roma tomatoes there, and then I also had just like regular, I don't even know what the real name is, but the tomatoes in the vine that you would use for like a sandwich or something. And I decided to not use those and just stick with the Roma tomatoes to start off with. The book that I'm referencing is a Better Homes and Garden book from 2015. I will try to put it in the description box for you guys if you're interested. My husband found it when we were thrifting. I think it was $3. So that's what I have been using to reference for my first time canning, which is pretty exciting. I prefer to have like an actual physical book in front of me, especially when I do new projects like this, because I don't want to keep looking at a phone. I want to have like an actual book or piece of paper to reference. So this is how I got started with that. And as the book said to do, and which I figured I had to do, I skinned all my tomatoes, and then I originally wanted to make a tomato sauce, spaghetti sauce type of tomato canned good, but I got a little bit too nervous and a little bit too scared and just decided to do some diced tomatoes. And I just seasoned them with some Italian seasoning and oregano and gave it my best shot. And I got one whole can, like I mentioned. I have not used it yet. I'm tempted to use it really soon. The seal did seal, so everything seems good. Nothing seems to be wrong with it, but I am keeping an eye on it, and I'll probably use it sooner than later. But this was a really fun project to try out, and I cannot wait in the fall to hopefully try some new canned things. I've mentioned a couple of times that I want to have a small like little porch garden going on, and I'll be talking all about that once the spring comes and the weather finally breaks and what I'm going to have out there. But I would like to can more of that produce when I can in the fall. And once I finished up my canning, I got to work on some regular homesteading things that I've been doing lately. And if anybody ever wants to know, my cat is always my shadow, watching me from above these cabinets. Our last place had cabinets like this where they didn't reach the ceiling all the way, but he never found his way up there, but he has found his way up there now through the refrigerator. But he's always watching, he's always there. So starting out, we are working on some more bone broth. I have been in an excess of chicken carcasses lately. We've really been loving the Whole Foods, just like whole chickens. And so we've been using that. If you've seen in my last What We Eat in a Week video, I mentioned how we have been eating a lot of them, and I show you guys kind of how I make it. If you're interested in that, you can go check out my last What We Eat in a Week video. I do have a playlist for that going. I'm hoping to make those monthly videos, so that way you guys can kind of see what a newlywed couple is making for themselves to eat during the week. But we have a lot of chicken carcasses, so I decided to get some chicken broth going with some of the frozen veggie scraps I had in the freezer, and then with my extra tomatoes that I was too nervous to use in my canning tryouts, I decided to make some homemade tomato soup, which I made a little while ago. I think back in the fall I made some, but it had been a while, so I wanted to use up these tomatoes and make some tasty tomato soup. And I wanted to break out my crock pot so I didn't have to stand and babysit this all day. I will leave the recipe that I used for my tomato soup down in the description box below in case you want to make it. It's really easy. You just throw everything in the crock pot, let it sit on high for a couple of hours, and then once everything is soft, I put it in our blender, blended it up, because that tends to make it less almost gritty pieces, I guess, if that makes sense. I can't think of the word I'm trying to look for, but it makes it nice and smooth, and I think it works a lot better than an emulsion blender, which I've tried in the past. I added just some garlic powder, I think, and salt and pepper, and then I threw in some leftover chicken stock that we had gotten from Whole Foods because I didn't have any available stock, even though I'm making some fresh. And then I threw it on high for I think about 5 hours until everything got nice and soft. And while that started to go, I fed my starter because I decided I wanted to make some biscuits to go along with this. We didn't have any bread ready to go, and we didn't have any cheese, so I couldn't make grilled cheese, but I decided to make some sourdough biscuits. And once all that was set, I decided to sit down with my Kindle and read. I don't remember if I've mentioned my Kindle yet or not on this channel, but I asked for one for Christmas so I could get more into reading. I've been a big reader my entire life, and I wanted to get more into it, and I wanted to use a Kindle mainly for the sake of not having a lot of books around because we just don't have a lot of space. If you needed someone to put you on the Kindle train and to convince you to get a Kindle, this is your PSA. You should try it. I absolutely love my Kindle. Would recommend, absolutely. So if you've been on the edge, if you've been thinking about it, I would do it, absolutely. It's been my most used Christmas gift, and I think I've already read 13 or 14 books. I fly through it on the Kindle. I don't know why, but I love it. And as I mentioned, I wanted to make some biscuits. This recipe will also be linked down below in the description box. If I don't ever put anything down there, leave me a comment if you're curious as to where something is coming from. But I try my best to leave everything down in the description box because most of the time I'm not making my own stuff. I have a couple of homemade recipes that I'll use every now and again, but most of the time it's just stuff that I find online, like this biscuit recipe. And these came out super tasty. There's something to me about just mixing the flour and butter together when it comes to making biscuits like this. I don't know what it is. To cut the butter into the flour, it just reminds me so much of my baking days in working in numerous different kitchens, honing my skills and learning all kinds of tips and tricks. And also, as I'm adding the honey to this bowl, one of you very kindly left me a comment on my last video. And I feel like I'd heard this somewhere before, but I don't fully remember, so I'm going to say I haven't heard this. Someone told me to not use metal spoons in my honey. Something with the acidity of the metal spoon and the honey can like mess with the honey. And this person said to use wooden spoons. So I'm waiting on a pack. I ordered a 6-pack from Amazon of small wooden spoons to use for my honey. So thank you so much for leaving me that comment. If there's anything that you ever think I should know, or new tips and tricks or anything like that, please leave me a comment, because I'm always willing to learn. And you all have been so kind with this new journey, and everyone has been leaving such lovely comments, and I appreciate all of that so much. And for the last part of this video, I wanted to try out something new again, which my husband thinks I should make more often than regular sourdough. This is a sourdough sandwich bread loaf. And he'd been mentioning a couple of times if I could make a loaf like this, where it's not just like a loaf of sourdough bread, it's like a more typical loaf that you would use for sandwiches. So I decided to give it a shot. Again, this will be linked down below. I threw all my ingredients together in the mixer and then added some flour, and I have found that especially during this time of year, stuff does not rise very well in my kitchen. It is so cold and it drives me bananas because it makes me think something's wrong with my starter. I really think I just don't have a warm enough kitchen space. So I did end up putting this in the oven overnight, oven off obviously, covered it, stuck it in the oven overnight. It rose so beautifully. I'm doing the window pane test right here so you can see, and I can try and tell if the dough is at a good consistency with the window pane method. But I put it in the stove overnight, didn't put any plastic wrap or anything on top of it, and the way this turned out in the morning, it rose so nicely. So then once it was finished with its proof, I think the recipe called for like a 12-hour proof or something like that. So I think it was in there for much longer than 12 hours, but it seemed to come out just fine. I took it out of the bowl, rolled it up into a pan shape, and then let it rise some more, which turned out even better again. I stuck it back in the oven again for that second rise, oven off, and then baked it at 375 for, I believe, 40 minutes, and it turned out to be this gorgeous sandwich bread loaf. And I have never made sandwich bread before, and this is one that will be on rotation. My husband really enjoyed it much more than a regular sourdough bowl, so this one will be in rotation for us for sure. And thank you for watching my video and listening to me be extra chatty today. I hope you enjoyed, and you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. I make 2 new videos every single week on all things sourdough, homemaking, and country living. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.